Hey guys, Luna here, and welcome back to our life. Let's just continue right into it, shall we? At 8:45 the next morning, the wedding team of 5 crowded into Baxter's office, and crowded was the word. The first challenge your team faced was where exactly to sit. A single fox leather couch had scattered office chairs that went with desks were in the available options. This space was not made for a crew of people, but considering it was normally hosted couples, you wouldn't complain. Scott, Jude, and Miranda sat in a row, snug on the couch like peas in a pod. Randy's legs were crossed over on the cushion, so there was room for Terry on the ottoman. He stole one of the desk chairs and placed it by the couch. Baxter didn't need 3 of those for himself, and he moved it back to when he was done. It was fine. Clearly I hadn't been there to see the groggy game of musical chairs. We were still waiting for him even then. Scott stared at the time on his phone, flinching every minute closer to 9. Jude squished against him and rubbed his fiance's back. As welcoming as the two had been, almost walking on eggshells to make sure nothing felt troubling, you were all still aware of how tight the deadline was. They had to feel the pressure. Then, when the clock struck 9, there was a knock on the door. Confused glances ebbed from Miranda's end down the couch, down to your side. Each person was wondering if everyone else heard that. Who's there? The door swung open, wide open in response. Good morning, everyone. There he was, shoes shining, suit fresh pressed, hair swooped just so, with not a strand out of place, grin granite sharp. He looked even more self-possessed than at the restaurants. Obviously, this Baxter ward was perfectly capable of functioning before noon. The overly grand way of speaking, the difficulty with mornings, the monochrome style, the desire to befriend everyone he had met, none of his most recognizable characteristics seemed to have lasted. You had to wonder who he really was, if not at all that. Hey, sup? Morning. Just sat there quietly.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for coming. Scott scrambled to hide his phone with one hand and used the other to keep from losing his glasses in haste. And something happened. Baxter's smile curved playfully and his eyes narrowed. He blinked rapidly and was expecting white streaks to return, realizing his error. This is my office. There's a few other places I could go. Well, that attitude was familiar at least. Flawlessly poised, Baxter strode to the other half of the room and took a seat in the rolling office chair opposite the couch. He used the tips of his feet to smoothly twist the chair's position so that it faced the group completely. No comment was made on the chair you had commandeered. Now, we know why you're here. I believe we should begin. Nods and low murmurs of agreement followed, until the entire room started from a sudden shout. Terry smacked himself against the side of his head. Oh wait! All eyes were on him. Terry beamed, keeping his attention squarely on Baxter. Since you've missed everything, I gotta tell you I'm a guy.
Of course.
Of course, I understand. Thank you for talking about that with me. Cool. He sprung forward on the footstool.
Yeah!
And I used a Y in Terry, not an I. Then Terry settled down from the second rapid interjection. He rolled a hand through the air as if to say, carry on. I will remember that. Baxter retrieved a notepad and pen from his inner jacket pocket. So, normally, I'd love to hear as much about you as you two as you're willing to share. However, I'm aware we have a schedule to keep to. I'll stick to what's most relevant to the tasks at hand. I will still need to ask many questions. You'll need to bear with me. It's important to have all the specifics to make certain we're on the same page. I'll never want to simply assume I know what you want. Instead, I want to say for yourselves what your hopes and plans and ideas are. I get what you mean. We made that mistake before. Scott messed with his ponytail. He chuckled at some private thoughts. It perked Baxter's smile. There was an entrance beyond mere polite attention.
Oh?
There's a little hint to continue didn't go unheard. Scott was just that kind of person. If there was an opening to talk, he would fill it gladly.
The thing is,
when we were so long distance, actually starting before we were dating, I'd always go about getting my nose pierced. At least once a year since I knew him. I'll talk up to Jude about it this time. I was actually... words. At least once a year, ever since I knew him, I'll talk it up to Jude how this time I was actually going to do it. Eventually, Jude stopped being convinced that I was going to do it on my own. He told me if I did seriously get one, he would do it too, and then we could match.
well,
I did, and he did. Separately in other states, as you can see for yourself. We had different ideas of what getting a gold nose ring meant. Yet, it was plain as their noses on their face. Jude had a gold horseshoe in his septum. Meanwhile, Scott had 2 golden hoops in one nostril. Now we have almost matching nose rings. Scott clapped his palms against his knee, ending up the tail end of that note. Jude, a bellowing laugh, followed immediately.
It's good.
I like our almost matching nose rings. Aw, he's blushing. And hey, now we got real matching rings. Aww, they're adorable. He flexed his left hand, showing off the distinct black band. The 2 men had identical engagement rings. Unable to resist the temptation, Scott filled Jude's open hand with his own. Jude clasped him back. They were a delightful couple, even a pro like Baxter could see.
Charming.
That is absolutely charming. Not to mention a good reminder that even if something doesn't go exactly as planned, that doesn't mean it's all bad. But of course, I'll do what I can to make the day everything you're dreaming of. He clicked the pen out. To start off, have you thought about possible surnames? Are either of you going to take the others, use a hyphenation, or not make any changes, or so on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Scott's last name, Adam. Mr. and Mr. Adam it is. Baxter quietly vocalized the official name while jotting down his first note of the session. And what do you have finished already? Venue and food. And my cousin's a photographer, so that's good. It's a caterer, that's what we have. There's no wedding cake or any desserts, actually. Not that we need it. Who's gonna starve without cake? Cove Holden. Thank goodness he wasn't there to listen to such blasphemy. Almost nothing is technically needed to be married legally, but if we can have it, why shouldn't we? Sure, if there's time. They went back and forth, trading comments and remembering points the other had, and cuddled close on the couch. It was like watching a meeting between 2 kings and their semi-trusted advisor. Unfortunately, in their moment, it was comparable to kings coming from different countries rather than one ruling together. Their approaches were not the same. The final guest list is done. Invitations already sent. We've got speakers for
and?
music. There's no live band or DJ, just a playlist. And the ceremony and reception takes place in one room. We have a run-in podium for the ceremony. The location comes with chairs and tables, but there aren't a lot of decorations done. Being listening closer, Baxter pressed 2 fingers into his chin. Do you know what you'll be wearing? Scott's face ping-ponged between his planner and fiancé. He stalled. We got suits.
It's not great.
Suits we already own, he means. It's nothing special. We haven't bought or rented anything for the wedding, but what we have would work if there's no other way.
I see.
Baxter himself paused there, considering. A picture was beginning to form in his mind. Are there any other traditions or extra touches you would like to include in either the ceremony or reception? I don't know. 5 minutes in, and Scott was already sighing. He pressed his glasses higher on his face.
Oh.
If you couldn't tell, we haven't gone far enough to consider anything extra. We're short on the major parts, so... The office chair creaked as Baxter rested against it. The gesture was disarming, physically pulling back from the non-stop questioning.
Bravo!
First, let me say what you've already done is taking care is commendable. My job is going to be far easier. Jude and Scott were absolutely flattered as someone in Baxter's position had good things to say about the situation. With how much they'd been put into their big day, getting some positive feedback must have been a real nice treat. They smiled shyly to one another. I'd like you to get me in contact with the info for the venue and caterer when you can. I'll put it in the group chat. Excellent. He'd gotten the meeting off on the right foot, intentionally so. Baxter pivoted to make his next move.
It's doable.
Second, there should be a space to finish multiple tasks with time we have and the amount of people who can assist, so let's prioritize and delegate. Desserts and decorations are foremost. If there's only room, would anything else be done? Possibly collecting new clothing for the occasion? Is that what I'm hearing? Yes, sure. Throughout the extended interview, you, Terry, and Miranda had been silent. Scott and Jude might have very well been forgotten you were in the room. At that point, your job was to listen. You only act once the decisions were ready to put into action. But watching Baxter work as a professional planner was a surreal experience. He seriously did look like he knew what he was doing. He was asking the right questions, reading the room. Baxter's skills had grown considerably since helping Miranda's birthday party. We've already got stuff we're working on our place. We're making guest favors. No clue where we get a cake.
It's true.
Me neither. I have tried, but how do I know if they're getting good at it? Who orders a wedding cake before the wedding? Being able to make other desserts doesn't mean you can do it decently. If you're willing to take recommendations, I'm acquainted with a baker. Xavier comes highly recommended by my previous clients, and I can vouch for them personally. Did you get your wedding cake from them? What a question. Scott meant it with complete sincerity. He has no ring. Oh, so?
No.
I'm unmarried at the moment, entirely single in fact, but I would hire them for my own if I did have the occasion. He didn't know what the perception was of an unwed wedding planners. Baxter wasn't flustered by the circumstances regardless. He wasn't seeing anyone. He chuckled amicably and smoothed the mob bump right over. Scott hadn't even registered the pitfall that was barely avoided. He was getting excited. Things were finally coming along. Alright, we go there. What are we gonna get? We can discuss it. Yeah, how long is it gonna take? Can we order today? The pressure Baxter intentionally released was laid on extra thick with Jude cut to the finished take on the bakery. That is possible. Since time is of the essence, you wouldn't be able to do a tasting session. That means you have to trust the flavors to be to your liking.
In that case...
Getting common or familiar options would be my suggestion, but you can certainly try something more unique if your heart's set on it. Are there any allergies we need to consider?
That's whatever.
No, that's whatever. Get chocolates and vanilla. In this case, Baxter didn't accept the first answer he received. Baxter's keen eyes went to Jude's other half for a second opinion. Scott gulped.
I don't know.
I don't know what else to pick off the top of my head. We can think a little longer. Baxter kept his tone approachable, harmless. He was having a double as a therapist and gently coaxing clients to speak their minds. No, I don't really know. We should get chocolate and vanilla. I don't like that. That's fine. It's a classic. Chocolate and vanilla. The note was taken down. Baxter pressed firmly into the paper at once. Period.
What do you think?
But do you have any design notes? Normally that would be done with the baker, but again, limited schedule. I imagine you don't want to sit down and get acquainted with someone new. We can have the details prepared ahead of time to expedite the process. What design does a cake need? That depends on you. Cakes can come in about any style you imagine, and many more styles you never think on your own. Scott almost slept from his seat over that topic. Maybe he would have if he wasn't so pressed on all
That's
fronts.
true.
It's true, I saw a lot of pictures when we're looking at bakeries. They can be so cool. People can make 3D carved cakes into shapes of things. It doesn't look like a cake at all. There are so few opportunities in life when you can just justify spending a lot of money on a incredible cake. This prospect of that being now had Scott more excited about the planning than anything else so far. You can even get a cake that's a car. Seriously, a car with working headlights and everything. Jude loves his car more than me some days. Only a few weeks out of the year. You get me most of the time. They share a laugh. The meeting was becoming friendly, more fun. The two could enjoy the process past all the stress of it all.
Not happening.
But putting a car cake isn't going to work. No one could do it. Unfortunately, Jude was correct on that count. Bexer recommended Baker had to be good, however, humans could only do so much. A custom confection vehicle in matter days with no prior notice was asking for there to be no cake at all. In fact, it was baking cupcakes the night before an event looked like a piece of cake. Perhaps a compromise is in order. For example, a typical tiered cake with some model decorations. Who's gonna notice? Baxter loaded his pen. The positive momentum had been lost. This does need to be wrapped up on a stressful timeline. However, there is still room to have what you actually want. I want a cake that you can eat. I want that too. Doesn't need to have a lot of fancy stuff, right? Not fancy people.
Very well.
I see. The future Adams might have been particularly pretty, but as a bona fide fancy man himself, Baxter was personally insulted by the repeated dismissiveness of all the formalities. At least he would have been 5 years ago. We had no idea what he was thinking now. His expression was inscrutable. It was only clear that he was continuing to pay close attention. Well, I won't pressure you to do more than you like, but I think we should at least pick a couple words to note the overall theme. Traditional, vintage, modern, and such.
Uh-huh.
Finished and not ugly. Joan wouldn't bite no matter how appetizing the treat. Baxter reevaluated his approach. Those should go without saying. And with this baker, if it doesn't matter in particular to you, that isn't a problem. Scott, do you have a preference? I want something that seems modern. Old-fashioned cakes are not my style. Or, in a less diplomatic terms, the sight of frou-frou buttercream piping might have made him break out in hives despite the lack of allergies. Absolutely, that's the approach. What's the actual presentation? Simplistic, elegant, floral, beachy?
Would that be alright?
Could it be simple and elegant? Scott thoughtfully scratched the stubble along his jaw and his gaze wandered. The combination of descriptors was one of those possibilities he couldn't even imagine, apparently.
Certainly.
Then that, right? He glanced to Jude instinctively. As dismissive as Jude had been about the cake, Scott remained hopeful as his partner would feel positive about it.
Great.
Perfect, Scott. Jude meant it. Even if it wasn't what Scott had wanted, it was enough. Glad you think so. In that case, since you're thinking of keeping it simple, prioritizing the flexibility, I could visit the bakery for you and make the request. You have other obligations to take care of, I imagine. I can't confirm the budget through text when I get the quotes. Do you know the amount of tiers you want? Tell us you've seen how big our party is.
All right.
I can certainly give my take. For a wedding your size, I would suggest 3 tiers at least.
Done.
Guess so.
That's good. We're gonna have a wedding cake. Compared to how enthusiastic Scott started at the outset of the topic, the conclusion was the cake didn't get to baking powder mixed in the batter flats. So it seemed any cake would do, literally and metaphorically. Jude didn't care and Scott wouldn't push it. Baxter's planning's ability had been tested there, and the only one who came out fully satisfied was Jude.
I can do that.
I believe I know everything I need at the moment. I can put that order for you today. Thank you so much for the help, but somebody should go with you to be sure I can do it. Would the rest of you be good for making favors? Probably. Basically, the single word response said with a shrug didn't fill Scott with confidence.
I'm not sure.
Maybe someone else should go to the bakery, Jude? He can handle it. If you got a part Atlanta so he can do things and we can do other things. The fission of disagreement didn't frazzle Mr. Ward, calmly interjected with a suggestion. If the two of you are the most informed about the guest favors, then someone who doesn't know the process as well could attend the bakery with me. Jude's right. You know, you're lucky to have others here to assist, and it isn't me alone. We can share the responsibilities. Randy and Terry have been helping out. Luna just got here. We have to show him how to do it. Scott grabbed his fiance's shoulder as he piggybacked it back on what Jude was going. There had been a redirect back to the same page.
Yes!
Or they could be the one to go to the bakery. Your name coming up for that assignment didn't get the planner to acknowledge you in any way. Reacted as distantly as they said their random cousin Tom Gregg would go. Baxter wasn't intending to mess around with the planning. You could understand that. Do you mind, Luna? Sure, I can go to the
We owe you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Luna will do a good job getting the desserts. Terry nodded at the wisdom in the plan. It was a unanimous decision. Baxter grinned past you in an entirely artificial way. It's settled. A few more minor details were laid out before the end of the meeting was officially called. You had to exit the building in one group and then split off in the parking lots. The main team of Scott, June, Miranda, and Terry are going to spend the entire afternoon on the guest favors, while your branch had the task of arranging a cake. Baxter directed the way to go and separated from the crowd first. You had to give fast farewells before catching up with your partner for the operation. Baxter led you to the back of the lot and approached what you assumed was his car. Somehow, as you got closer to it, you could have guessed it was Baxter's. It was sparkling white, not a single scratch, scuff, or speck of dirt. One door was open, the interior... Well, once the door was opened, the interior, however, was floor-to-ceiling black. God, that's gonna be hot, I imagine. Black and white. Another coincidence, perhaps? Or were there too many of those at this point to be happenstance? Baxter eased the seatbelt across his chest and addressed his passenger. You. It was strange. He'd been so committed to maintaining a defined distance. When it was no longer an option, he didn't touch on the change. Instead, he behaved as if he was always an employee in your service.
So,
Welcome to my vehicle. Please change the temperature and air direction to your liking. The radio works. I'll leave it off, but of course you could put on some music if you want. Baxter's face was kept straight ahead, his eyes toward the road, and he hadn't even started driving yet. How professional. You could watch him as much as you wanted, right up close if you wanted. And you did. The meteor mark in his neck was close enough to touch. That was him, Baxter Ward. It was you and Baxter sitting alone in the car, 5 years and a promise that you'd never see each other again. And he wasn't going to acknowledge even a hint of that on his own. You were certain of it. Can we talk? What would you be speaking
I
about?
apologize.
I can endeavor to help with any part of the planning, but unfortunately my base knowledge is limited to specific areas. Well, that was a pleasant way to outright reject talking about anything actually important. Car is black and white, huh? His grip loosened on the wheel. A softball question was the right call.
Yes.
Yes, this was the model available at the dealership. You attempted to add follow-ups or kickstart the conversations. He bunted each one, answering as succinctly as possible. It couldn't have been described as a cheerful drive, but time passed in an acceptably uneventful fashion. As soon as Baxwell was pulling into a parking spot somewhere in the heart of Prism Vista City, you'd arrived. A pastel pink sign plastered across the top of the building's read Zake's Bakery in bold letters. A smaller cursive underneath said Cakes Designed by Xavier. Baxter approached without wasting a second. A tinkling bell as Baxter opened the door. As he had it out for you, being in a rush didn't mean being impolite, apparently. You joined him. Oh, this is a cute bakery. I like this. The design of the sign actually alluded to what was to come. Though a bakery was decked out in soft pinks and greens, each dessert was neatly rose and delightfully delicate. If it tastes matching the presentations, they must be incredible. Warm air perfumed with spices like cinnamon and nutmeg surrounded you completely. Whatever teenage Baxter's sharp monochrome style was supposed to be, this store was the opposite of that. The sound of the bell summoned someone from the back. Clad in a simple apron far from the basic face makeup on and stylish updo, the employee smiled brightly. At the risk of being presumptuous, you guessed that was Xavier. The whole look was made to fit with the overall aesthetic. Even the flowers in their flowing hair looked as if they were plucked right off a wedding cake.
Always a pleasure.
Oh, they're cute. I love their design. I love their hair. Their hair is adorable. And they have the little pin too. Oh god, the art team is just so good for the. I love the art team. Baxter, welcome. Always a pleasure. Is this a new client? Not quite, but I do have a job for you. This is Aluna, a friend of my latest couple. They're here to assist with the preparations of the event.
Well,
The lovebirds are busy with tasks of equal importance, you see. It was almost astounding how much more naturally you spoke when you was to anyone other than you. Though this being about his work also might have helped, Baxter was back in his element. Luna, this is Xavier. They are the head baker and cake artist at this fine establishment. Thanks for coming in. It's good to meet you. Xavier's eyes sparkled. At first glance, the color seemed to be pale brown, but the more you looked, the more you caught shades of purple. I feel like I have seen them before. You could only stare silently, racking your brain for where the strike of deja vu was coming from. When had you caught a glimpse of irises like that before, and then it just came right out? Did you ever paint faces at the boardwalk?
what?
For a minute, Baxter might have believed you lost your mind. Meanwhile, Xavier was in fear of you being a mind reader. I did. That was my first real job. I've always been an artist. The laugh was as musical as bell at the
Oh!
Wait, does that mean we've been closely acquainted before? You didn't paint my face, but I was watching you do Three Brothers. Three Brothers? I might know who you mean. Yeah, one time, years ago, I went there with my family and friend's family, going to the boardwalk, and there was a big tradition.
That's incredible!
How great to meet again. It is. Huh, so I guess if you actually went to get your face painted, you actually got to see Xavier. That's interesting. This wedding planning was a thing full of unexpected reunions. The other person was surprised and went in again, chuckled off to the
I
side.
see.
I see you're already well ahead of me, Luna, as usual. So, what exactly can I do for you? Or your client, rather? To be honest, it's a bit of a pinch usual to not even have one person getting married come to commission their wedding cake. But these unusual circumstances. Baxter confessed that much with his eyes closed. When he had enough shamelessness to look Xavier directly in the face, they began to chime if Baxter's grand had been pushed to the absolute.
Is that fine?
Could you possibly make a 3-tier cake that is simple yet elegant and modern in about 3 days? Xavier's perfectly painted lips popped open. Not a word came out of them, but it wasn't as if they were given a chance to object. There was more. And that schedule is including today. The wedding is a Saturday afternoon, so it's Thursday. Baxter rolled his wrists, smoothly recounting each of the points set during the initial plan meeting. If he stated as a predetermined fact, surely that meant it would become real. For flavors, they would like chocolate and vanilla, separate for 2 of the tiers and combination for 1. They finally cut him off there, folding their arms down.
Flavors are not a concern right now, monsieur.
Really?
I would say that's fairly important. What if I can't do the altar? Oh, Xavier, no need to worry. I trust in your abilities immensely. There's a scoff. Baxter kindly ignored it. Besides, there are worse arrangements. Are there? An example of that would be, well, entirely theatrical. You could have to prepare desserts for a full-scale party the very night before the event. You blinked. Did Baxter just reference when you worked together to throw a party for Miranda? Those shared memories had played out in your mind lately, especially since you were handling event desserts again, but he made his interest in reminiscing known. There is none. And yet, there he went, chuckling heedlessly and running a hand through his hair.
Understandable.
I am sympathetic to being a difficult task. As Luna has my witness, I did swear to never take for granted the effort to never take for granted the effort it takes to provide a decorated and delicious treat under pressure. We were only able to start baking 3 dozen cupcakes at a time when many people were going to bed. Baxter glanced at your face, his eyes sparkling with affection. You weren't mistaken. He was talking about the time we were dating, and now he acknowledged you directly in his storytelling. You did? What? With who? I I thought they were here because of one of your clients. Xavier's disbelief over his words rivaled your own, except for entirely different reasons. They batted their hand encouragingly for more details. Baxter schooled his coyness into a more level-headed smile at being questioned, and suddenly understood. He knew Xavier, he knew. The clients he didn't know weren't there. For a moment, Baxter had forgotten his professional self. It wasn't Baxter's normal state to wall you out so completely. That was a concerted effort, one that went against his real preference. His first instinct was to be still amicable towards you. The cupcakes were only half of it. Did you know he drank underage? Xavier's eyes widened, and so did their smile. Can you elaborate on the story? But that tangent was stopped short of with a demure ahem. Let's not get too distracted. While 3 days is more than a single night, it is a tight deadline regardless. It would be rude to take up any more of your time than necessary. Baxter spoke while continuously ignoring the fact that Xavier did not accept the commission being foisted on them. Truly, nothing rude was allowed. As the only person in the room who might be able to understand the nonsense of what they were going through, Xavier frowned at you. He had no explanation to give for Baxter. Sighing, Xavier pressed their palms into the lower back, already feeling the phantom strain from this job. I'll do it for you. That sounded about right. If a random pair of people had rolled in and began making similarly absurd demands, you couldn't imagine Xavier would have humored that. So a victory was a victory. Mr. Planet managed to pull it off somehow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You are a lifesaver. Baxter retrieved his notebook from his jacket, not hesitating a second. Xavier matched the move. They had a notepad with order sheets. The wedding plan industry collaboration began, the process of putting a cake in order. All prior decisions were recounted, and Baxter had described the pair in question as best as possible. You had a few points of your own to contribute from being more familiar with Jude and Scott. It was made extra clear that Scott did not want a cake designed and laced and frilled out like an 18th century underwear. Xavier had a handful of follow-up questions, but it was nothing that required calling a couple. And then the baker slipped the order form into the pocket of their apron. Amazingly, your work there was done. Having a professional do the desserts was really a breeze.
Good deal.
Thank you for stopping at his sake. I better get started. They offered a grin as sweet as any slice of cake. We'll see each other again soon, okay? That's as customers, although that would be nice too. But also to hang out after this shared nightmare is over. Baxter immediately came in with another throat clear, much harder than before. First of all, you shouldn't call the Adams wedding a nightmare, even if the circumstances aren't ideal. They have done what they could. And second, you're right the first time. Luna is a friend of the couple I am working with. We don't hang out together. Xavier's face went blank, and they paired it with an ever so slight tilt of the head. I am not so sure why you're saying that. We have got work to do. You two can explain it next time. I can wait. I wondered if Baxter's remembered about 5 minutes ago when each other's one of Xavier's suggestions went through one of his ears and out the other, and if his own medicine tasted bad. He bristled. That simply wouldn't do. With his firm insistence and exaggerated enunciation, Baxter repeated his same points. Regrettably, that won't be next time. The three of us will come together like this. Once the wedding is concluded, Luna will have no reason to interact further. No, Xavier has a point. We should do that.
Woohoo!
Great, so call me when you're free. Luna is leaving shortly after the wedding. If I can fit this cake into my schedule, I'm sure Luna can find time to visit, especially if I want to. The same goes for you, Baxter. Baxter shot daggers at Xavier without ever dropping his sparkling customer service smile. That only made it more intimidating. No. I will visit you again, surely, but you'll have to be content with yourself with only my company.
Now,
thank you very much for accepting this rush order, Xavier. You are so much of a help. but we need to be getting going. In the most roundabout way possible, he was kindly requesting Xavier get off his back already. Then he turned that back directly to them and strode out the door without another word. Xavier watched his dramatic exit with their hands stuffed into the big apron pockets. An unexpected seriousness colored their normally bright features. For a playfellow as Xavier was, they were concerned about their acquaintance, work friends, normal friends. You didn't know where they stood with him. Xavier themselves likely didn't have a clear answer. Baxter was opaque that way.
Phew!
Good luck with all of this. Thanks, I'll need it. He gave your goodbyes and certain that this wouldn't be the last time he spoke, and headed off after Baxter. Baxter was waiting for you by the car. He climbed inside as he approached before you were close enough to try speaking, and you joined him inside. With that, I think that is a perfect place to end this. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you guys have a good day, night, week, month of your lives, and may the stars forever guide your path wherever it might lead you into the future. Bye-bye, and hope to see you guys again next time.